It begins on what looks like a normal, peaceful day in New Orleans. A ferry's getting ready to leave the dock, carrying Navy sailors, families, and tourists. People are laughing, but nobody has any idea that within a few moments this ordinary ferry ride is going to turn into a nightmare. On the ferry's vehicle deck, the radio suddenly starts playing from inside one of the cars. A staff member hears it and walks over to check. The keys are in the car and it has no license plate. When he looks closer, he notices strange equipment inside the vehicle. Before he can react or warn anyone, the car explodes. The blast is massive. Fire tears through the ferry, destroying everything in seconds. Hundreds of innocent people are killed. Authorities arrive quickly and the investigation begins. This is where ATF agent Doug Carlin arrives. Doug studies every detail carefully. He examines the blast site, the wreckage, and the smallest pieces of evidence. During his search, he finds a fragment of an electric blasting cap, which tells him the explosion was not an accident. This was a planned attack. At the scene, Doug meets FBI agent Paul Priswara. Paul asks him about his partner, Larry. Doug says Larry's supposed to be on vacation, but strangely, nobody has been able to reach him. Doug and the investigators also find traces of ammonia nitrate on the bridge nearby, a chemical commonly used in powerful homemade bombs. With this evidence, Doug concludes that the ferry explosion was a terrorist attack. Later, Doug returns to his office and receives a strange message. A woman had called earlier asking about him. She wanted details like his height and skin color. Doug has no idea who she is or why she would be asking about him. He calls her back, but nobody answers, so he leaves a message. While scanning the traffic, he finds a man stopping on the same bridge before the blast. Soon after, Doug receives a call from the police. A woman's body is found floating in the water. At first, everyone assumes she's one of the ferry victims, but her body was discovered before the ferry exploded. That means she couldn't have died in the blast. Doug listens to the autopsy report of the body himself. The woman has burns on her skin. Her fingers have been cut off, and her mouth was taped. Doug immediately realizes this was murder. The killer tried to make her look like one of the explosion victims, but the timeline doesn't match. The woman's name is Claire Kutchever. Doug visits Claire's house to learn more about her. Inside, he finds signs that something terrible happened there. He finds a gun, some blood-stained clothes, strange details around the house, and a weird message on the fridge that says, "You can save her." Then Doug checks Claire's answering machine, and he hears his own voice. It's the message he left earlier when he called her back. Claire was the same woman who had called his office asking about him. Now Doug starts connecting the dots. Claire was killed. Her body was burned to make her look like a ferry victim, and her vehicle may have been used to carry the bomb onto the ferry. Doug realizes that Claire's murder and the bombing are connected. If they solve Claire's murder, they might also solve the entire terrorist attack. Then Doug sees his partner Larry's car among the vehicles connected to the ferry victims. Doug's told that Larry was killed in the explosion. Now the case becomes personal. Doug goes to Agent Paul and briefs him about his findings. His sharp observations impress Paul, so Paul invites him to join a covert special investigation team operating from a military base. There, Doug is introduced to a secret monitoring system called Snow White. Dr. Alex explains that Snow White is an advanced surveillance tool that gives them a detailed view with extreme precision of exactly 4 days and 6 hours in the past, as it uses 4 satellites to create its footage, and they can zoom into multiple angles of the target area. They make it sound like a powerful satellite imaging system, but there are limitations. The team can only watch the past in real time. They can't pause or rewind it. They only get one chance to view each moment, which is why they need someone like Doug. Doug suggests they start by watching Claire, since she's the link between being a murdered victim and the bombing. Following her final days could reveal who killed her. The team finds Claire in the past, alive at home. Snow White can look through the walls of her home as it uses her heat signals. Doug watches her through the screen, and something changes in him. She's no longer just a case file or a dead body. While watching Claire, Doug receives another strange update. Forensics found his fingerprints all over Claire's house. This makes no sense because Doug had worn gloves when he visited the house. He is sure he didn't leave any prints behind. Claire gets a call from a man interested in buying her car. Doug immediately suspects that this caller could be the killer. Unfortunately, Claire gives the man her address, not knowing she has just invited danger into her life. The team tracks the caller to a phone booth, but he's outside the target area. So they use an ATM camera nearby. They can't see his face clearly. Instead, they track his backpack and follow his movements. Doug becomes more suspicious of the Snow White system. The way it works doesn't feel like normal surveillance. It feels like they're directly looking into the past. To test his theory, Doug takes a laser pointer and shines it at the screen. Shockingly, Claire reacts to the light in the past. This proves that Snow White is not just showing old footage. Doug pushes the scientists for the truth. Finally, Dr. Alex explains that it isn't a surveillance camera. It's a time window through time created with advanced physics. The machine can fold space-time and open a wormhole, allowing them to view the past exactly 4 days and 6 hours earlier. Doug asks if Claire is still alive. Alex says she is, in that reality. Doug immediately asks the obvious question. If light can travel through the time window, can objects travel through too? The team is unsure, but Doug wants to try. He asks Alex to send a warning note to his past self with information about the suspect. The note goes through successfully, but instead of reaching Doug, his partner Larry finds the note. Larry follows the information in the note and tracks down the suspect, but the suspect attacks him, shoots him, and kidnaps him. The team watches helplessly. Since the suspect moves outside Snow White's range, Doug uses a special goggle rig that allows him to see the past while driving in the present. Doug is driving through real traffic while seeing a version of the road from 4 days earlier. He's following the suspect's past movements while avoiding present-day cars around him. Eventually, Doug tracks the suspect to his hideout. There, the suspect kills Larry and burns his body. Doug realizes something heartbreaking. By sending the note, they didn't stop Larry's death. They only changed how he died. Larry had damaged the suspect's windshield during their struggle. As a result, the suspect needed another vehicle to transport the bomb. That's what led him to Claire. In other words, Doug's attempt to change the past may have helped create the same events he was trying to prevent. The team finally identifies the suspect as Carol Urstadt. He's arrested and interrogated. Doug questions him, and Urstadt reveals himself as a dangerous man obsessed with destiny, attention, and being remembered. He doesn't act like someone who regrets what he did. Since Urstadt has been caught, Doug's superiors decide the case is finished. They want to shut down the investigation, but Doug refuses to accept that. He believes Claire is still alive in the past. The ferry passengers are still alive in the past. If there is even a small chance to save them, he believes they have to try, but nobody wants to risk it. Doug returns to Claire's house and sees the message on the fridge again. You can save her. He understands that the message may be something he's supposed to create himself. Doug decides to do the impossible. He will travel back in time. Alex warns him that sending a human body through the machine is extremely dangerous. The electromagnetic field could disrupt his body's electrical signals and kill him instantly, but Doug is determined. He can't walk away knowing the victims might still be saved. Doug enters the machine, and after a violent energy surge, he is sent 4 days into the past. He wakes up in a hospital having a seizure. The doctors find him with a strange note on his chest, asking to revive him, and they manage to save him. When Doug regains consciousness, he wastes no time. He steals a gun, takes an ambulance, and races towards Urstadt's hideout. He reaches the place just in time. Urstadt has already captured Claire and poured fuel on her, preparing to kill her. Doug crashes the ambulance into the house, interrupting him. Urstadt shoots Doug in the shoulder and escapes. Then he fires at the gas cylinders, causing the house to explode. Urstadt believes Doug and Claire are dead, but Doug managed to pull Claire out before the explosion. Claire is terrified and confused, but Doug calms her down. He knows they still have very little time before the ferry attack. Doug takes Claire back to her house so he can clean his wound and leave her somewhere safe. While there, Doug writes the message, "You can save her." He also cleans himself up, leaving behind the blood-stained items that his earlier self will later discover. Claire becomes suspicious because Doug knows too much about her life. She points a gun at him and demands answers. Doug tells her to call his office. When she does, she asks about his height and skin color, just like Doug had heard earlier in the timeline. While Claire treats Doug's wounds, he realizes a terrifying truth. He may not have changed anything. The fridge message, the bloody clothes, Claire's call to his office. Everything is happening exactly the way it already happened before. It feels like the timeline is repeating itself, but Doug refuses to give up. He takes Claire to the ferry dock. He plans to board the ferry, find the bomb and defuse it, as Orsted leaves to watch the explosion from afar. Doug boards the ferry and searches for the explosive vehicle. But Orsted notices the car Doug took from his place and knows that Doug is alive and on the ferry. He returns to stop him. Claire also boards the ferry, trying to warn Doug. But Orsted finds her and ties her up inside the vehicle with the bomb. Now everything becomes chaos. Orsted kills a staff member and starts shooting people on the ferry. Doug sneaks toward the bomb car, but he is running low on bullets. To distract Orsted, Doug surrenders and starts saying things he learned from him during the future interrogation. Orsted is shaken because Doug seems to know things he should not know. That moment of confusion gives Claire a chance. She rams Orsted with the vehicle and Doug finally shoots him dead. But the danger is not over. The bomb is still inside the truck and there's no time left to defuse it. Doug tells Claire to drive the vehicle into the river. They plunge into the water. Doug manages to free Claire, but he gets trapped inside. The bomb explodes underwater. The ferry is saved and passengers survive, but Doug dies in the explosion. Claire is devastated. She has survived and hundreds of people are alive because of Doug, but the man who saved her is gone. As she waits to give her statement, she suddenly sees Doug walking toward her. But this Doug is different. He doesn't recognize her. He has no memory of saving her because this is the Doug from the new timeline. Future Doug died, but past Doug still exists. Doug smiles at her, unaware of the incredible sacrifice another version of himself just made. Thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed this recap, make sure to like the video and subscribe for more full cool recaps. Comment below and tell me which survival or disaster movie you want next. And don't forget to hit the bell icon so you don't miss the next one. Bye!